How many billable hours for 25K a month? That is a super loaded question because obviously it's region dependent. If you're in London, New York, San Francisco, you can easily make that money because your day rate would be so high. But in other places, you might get less. So it all comes down to one, whatever the market is telling you people are paying roundabout, and then the value that you can create for yourself. So value perception is obviously massive. And that as a consultant, that's one of the biggest things that you actually need to learn to manipulate because clients are going to be paying you for these outcomes. But specifically, you need to make yourself look like the most valuable product on the market so that you can manipulate that perception and attach it to the outcome that you provide for these people. And what that means is just making yourself look like you're wrapped in a pretty bow so that you can charge the highest price. Now, if you're doing the more traditional form of consulting where you're going to a larger business or an enterprise, you're typically going to charge a day rate. Even though the back end is still hours, you work in a day rate just so that it's easier for you and whoever the hell you're speaking to understand it better. So let's just work on a grand a day. You can see that if you're doing a grand a day, the average month has about 22 days in it, so you would make 22 grand just on that alone. So in order for you to get to that 25K, you would either have to take on more than one client or use more than one pricing model. So you can either just use T&M, which is time and materials like we're speaking about here, where you're selling your time for money. And you can couple that with perhaps productizing a solution. If you've already automated something that you know a client would use over and over again in the same way, you can productize that, in which case you could make up for the fact that you only have 22 days of the year that you can charge for. And then the other 3 days are productized and therefore you can make up the extra money to get you to 25K. The other ways that you could do this is obviously remote work. So if you're working in your region, $25,000 may not be realistic. If you're in one of the bigger cities, it's a lot easier to get to that because your day rate would be closer to $1,500 to $2,000 a day, in which case you would have to work a lot less. But if you can't do that, then obviously you have to tie it to different pricing models, or you have to tie it to another way of working or working more days, or selling other people's time, which is obviously the most efficient way to do this so that you can decouple yourself from the business entirely, in which case you would be selling them for a day rate or 2 or 3 of them in order to hit this 25K. And that's exactly what I did when I went down this route. So I started selling T&M for $1,000 a day, and then it went up to $1,500 a day, and then it gets closer to $2,000 now that I'm in New York City because London was a cheaper day rate than it is in New York. But on top of that, when I was in London and I was scaling to over 50K a month, what I was doing is selling other contractors' times through one of my own businesses, and I was selling 2 or 3 of them to a client at a time, coupled with my T&M, and you can see how easily you can actually get to 50K or way more.